Hello everyone, welcome to another lesson. This lesson is a continuation of our discussion on JavaScript functions. From the previous lessons, we started talking about functions in JavaScript. So we've seen how you can define function traditionally using the function keyword, the function name, a pair of brackets as well as a pair of curly braces. And in the last lesson, we have also been able to look at how you can use arrow syntax to write shorter function syntax. So we were able to examine arrow functions in JavaScript in the previous lesson, whereby with arrow functions you can write shorter function syntax, and it's even more elegant and it allows you to avoid the use of function keyword when you are using arrow function, as it allows you to assign your function to a variable. With this particular lesson, I want to talk about an aspect of functions that is also important, which is called local variables. Now, variables declared within a JavaScript function become local to the function. Local variable can only be accessed from within the function. So what this basically means is that when you have a function and inside that function you have a variable, that variable is only scoped to that function. It is only accessible within that function, which means that if you try to access such variable from outside of the function, it will not work, because a local variable is a variable that is created inside the function and can only be used inside that function. So once the function finishes running, the local variable disappears, which means that outside or any other perimeter outside of that function, that variable will just disappear because it will no longer be accessible. So I just want to use a simple analogy so that we understand this in a clearer term. Just think of a function as a room, and then take a local variable as something inside that room. It could be your chair, it could be your mattress, it could be anything that belongs to your room. And then once you're in that room, you only have access to use it. For example, now let's say your bed and accessories you have in your bed. Once you're in your room and you enter into your bed, you have access to use all of those things. But once you step out, you can't use them again. If you need to use them, you always need to return back into that room to make use of whatever it is that you want to use. So that is what local variable does in JavaScript. So now I want us to take a look at that and see an example. Look at an example on my screen. So you can see that there's a function declaration and then there is a variable declaration inside that function. Let's name equals follow. And then if you have any further question, other code below this name, as long as it's within this function, they can access this name and then use it. But if you go outside of this function, maybe underneath it, you cannot use this name again, or outside it at the top, you can't use this name again. Since local variable are only recognized inside their functions, variable with the same name can be used in different functions. So the advantage of this is that you have different if you have different variable but has the same name, they can be used in different function, as because local variable makes them scope only to the function where they are declared. So which means that you can have a variable with the same name and still use it in different functions. Local variables are created when a function starts and deleted when the function is completed. So let's take a look of what I'm talking about in our code editor so that we understand the concept of what you have been talking about better. So I'm going to just bring up my uh, code editor, and then I want to take up this since I'm no longer using it. And here I will call it local variables in JavaScript. Local variables. A local variable is a function. Sorry, is a local variable is a variable, not function. Sorry, that is created within a function or inside a function and can only be used inside that function. So just comment this out. I don't think I need it now. So I am going to just make a simple function. So in this particular lesson, let me just use the usual function. So let me say greet. This is my function. And then let my message, which is the variable that I want to use inside this function, hello. And I can do something like console.log, then my message, which is this. Now, I want to open my console to check this out. So I'll comment this out because I won't be needing it. Now, if I do greet, let me call the function first. Also, if I call out my function like this, now you can see that inside my console, I am getting hello, which is the correct value for the variable I declare inside my function. Now, let me now try and access the variable itself outside of that function, console.log message. As you can see, uncaught reference error, message is not defined. And that is because this message that I am trying to access is scoped locally inside this function declaration that I have here. So I can't access it outside of that function. Even if I try to do it at the beginning of my script before I reach that point of function, if I try to do it at the top here, you see I'm getting a reference error because of the fact that I'm trying to access it outside of the function where it is declared. Now, the logical explanation for this is that message is created inside function. This message, which is my variable, and it works only inside this script function that you can see here. Outside this function, JavaScript cannot see it, and it is the reason why I am getting that reference error. Now, why are they called local? It is because they belong only to that function. So they are only scope only to the function in which they are declared. Then they cannot affect other part of the program. So outside of this function, you can't use them, and so they cannot cause issues. If you have another variable with the same name in any other part of your program, then they help avoid name conflict. So even though if they have the same name in elsewhere in the other part of your program, they will not cause conflict due to the fact that they are locally scoped to where it is that they have their declaration. Now let's now compare it to a global variable. So let's make a variable here. Let's say I have a variable here with my name, Toby. Now this is my name, a global variable, and then I have functions. So let me change this to age. Let age equals to 20. Console.log my name. Now you can see that because this variable is declared outside of this particular function, and I have a scope here to this particular function, even though this variable is outside of this function, I'm still able to access it because this is globally available. And then here, if I now try to access age, let's see what happens again. Now you can see that I am only able to access Toby, which is this first variable that I declare globally because it is a global variable. But when I try to access this age, you can see I'm getting a reference error because age is not defined, because age is locally scoped to this function where it is declared. So this is how local variable works in JavaScript. Thank you, and in the next lesson we'll continue.